Hello and welcome to episode 1 of Life Diaries. This is the director's cut. I don't know. But I'm going to be going more in depth over the 3 topics that I talked about. Number 1 was checking the fluids in your van. So when Cody and I went up to Joshua Tree, actually, in the middle of the trip, our van overheated, so we had to pull over, and it turns out that our water pump went out. Now, we have a Chevy G2500 Express. It's a pretty old van. It's 1999, so it's got some old parts. Now, when we were out in Joshua Tree, our van overheated, so we had to pull over and put more coolant in it, but the coolant was completely empty, which should not happen. Your coolant should never be empty. Make sure you keep on top of those fluids because that's extremely important. It turns out that our water pump actually went out, so we have to get that fixed. Now, working on vans is expensive, and if we could do it ourselves, we would, but how the water pump works is to fix it, you're going to have to take everything out of the engine and then fix it below and then put it back in. Now, I don't want to mess anything up in our van that's not messed up, so we're definitely paying somebody to do that. But our water pump went out, and so we had to keep putting coolant in, putting coolant in. A good tip, I don't know if you know this, you might, but if you're trying to figure out if your coolant's leaking or something, when it's parked somewhere, just run water through it instead of coolant so you don't have to keep buying more coolant. And you can figure out if the leak is there pretty easily. But definitely make sure you're checking up on your fluids. When we got our oil changed, they didn't tell us that our coolant was empty, which is extremely suspicious. So make sure that if you're getting an oil change and you don't know what your fluids are looking like, ask them specifically. Now, they're supposed to tell us because they told me with my other car, but they didn't tell me when we were getting our oil changed for the van. So if they don't tell you anything specific, make sure you ask them to check all your fluids so you know. Next time we are definitely doing that. Didn't know that I had to, but I guess I do. So I'm gonna be asking specifically to check my fluids, make sure all the levels are okay, because you don't want to be driving anywhere with nasty oil. You don't want to be driving anywhere with no coolant. So just make sure you ask specifically if they do not tell you. Number 2 is things are gonna go wrong. It's just gonna happen. The last trip that Cody and I took, so many things went wrong constantly. Not all with the van, but a lot of it doing with the van. I'm somebody that struggles a lot with anxiety and freaking out over the little things, even though maybe I don't need to. I understand that, but that doesn't help my anxiety. But when we were parked because we slept in a turnout on the first night, and when we were parked there, I was having a lot of anxiety just because this is the first time I've ever done this. And I've never camped in a van before. It's definitely a learning experience, but things are going to go wrong. Things might stress you out. It's just remember to breathe, and you're going to get it handled, and you're going to get it taken care of. If you're not completely comfortable camping just anywhere because you might be scared of what's going on outside of you, or you're just hyper aware like I am, BLM actually owns land. It's the Bureau of Land Management, and they own land predominantly out west, but around national parks and stuff, and you can camp there for free. It's dispersed camping. There's usually no amenities. You're basically out in the wilderness on your own, but you are on campgrounds. You might find fire pits some places, but usually it's just land. But you can camp there. They are campgrounds. So if you're maybe just scared of parking on the street for that night, I would aim for a campground, either established campground or something by the BLM, so you can do dispersed camping. Now that was kind of a tangent, but I did want to talk on that because I think it's really important. Being a woman and being in a van, I wasn't alone. I was with my fiance, but I still have anxiety. And being a woman doing this is scary. You know, I don't know about every woman, but I feel extremely vulnerable in general when I'm outside. and alone especially, but sleeping in a van is extremely vulnerable and it scares me. But that doesn't mean I want it to stop me. I still want to do it. But it might be easier just to ease yourself into it, and that will help calm a lot of the anxieties because when we first went on the Sequoia trip, I was really scared for where we stayed at. I didn't really know where we were. It was an extremely unfamiliar place. And so I was scared. But when we were in Joshua Tree, I felt a lot more comfortable because we were following iOverlander apps, and it wasn't just a turnout on the side of the road. There was a campground that we could have stayed at. We actually ended up staying at a gas station, just because we were there. It was tired, it was late, and it was either drive out there and then drive back to Joshua Tree, or just stay at the gas station and then drive back. Also, calming your anxieties. I had a great time sleeping next to a bunch of truckers at the gas station. You feel surrounded by people, so you're not out in the middle of nowhere. If something goes wrong, somebody's there that can help you. Definitely need earplugs though. Absolutely 100% earplugs are a necessity. But if you're anxious, try sleeping at a gas station. If it's not a rest stop gas station, most of the time you can just go in, ask them, hey, can we spend the night? We've been driving, we don't want to go home when we're really tired, whatever. So you can actually just ask most of the time, and they say yes. We've had great experience with that. But just understand that your anxieties are valid, but don't let them control you. Don't let them dictate where you go next, what you do next. I had a lot of problem with that the first time we went around. And I didn't want to let my fear control me because I'm very much want to be in control. I want to know what's going on around me, and this really helped me calm my anxieties with sleeping at a gas station first and then going on established campgrounds rather than a turnout. But yeah, that kind of ties in all number 2. I know that I went off on a tangent, but I think that all of it is helpful because I would have loved to hear something like that before we started this whole process. The third thing I want to talk about actually is your tires. Now, just make sure that your tread is good. If you don't know the penny tread test, you want to put a penny. I don't have a penny with me because I'm not prepared. I don't know why. But you want to put a penny in head first into one of the grooves, and then make sure Abraham Lincoln's head is not completely showing. If you can see the top of his head, you need new tires. But otherwise, you're good. You can check out that video. It's just a short clip on my story if you want to. So yeah, you can check it pretty easily. So make sure you know the weather conditions before you go anywhere, specifically for your tires. We went up to the Sequoias, didn't realize we were going to need snow chains, so we did grab those, and then we went up there and actually put the snow chains on, and it was awful. I mean, we're from Southern California, and we don't do snow. We don't know snow, no driving in snow. And having snow chains on for the first time on the side of a mountain was pretty scary, so we ended up turning around. Just make sure you know your weather conditions so you know what you're getting into and you know what you're comfortable with. Because throughout that entire trip, we had snow, we had rain, we had hail, and extremely strong winds with winds up to 60 miles per hour. So just be aware of what you're getting yourself into so you know that you can handle it, and don't get yourself into anything that you think is too much. But this is it for episode 1. If you watched this, thank you. I hope it was helpful to anybody thinking about it. My next one is actually going to be on looking for a van and buying a van. I know that you'd think that would go first, but whatever, I'm going out of order. If you have any questions, feel free to comment on this video, send me a message on Instagram. I'm open to all thoughts, comments. I would like to know. I am no expert. This is actually very new to me and Cody, and I'm just trying to make this as we go along so it could help somebody out too. So yeah, if this was helpful, I don't know. I hope this was helpful. But I will see you next Friday. I don't know if I want to do Fridays or Saturdays. I think Fridays, but I'm still figuring that out. If I want to be posting on Fridays or Saturdays. But yeah, I hope this was helpful, and I will see you next week for the next installment of Van Life Diaries. Bye!